Two people separated by a century yet walking upon the very same stairs. Both stop in their tracks, sensing each other's presence. Simultaneously, they reach out to touch an invisible lover. A century apart, he feels the warmth of her heart. She inhales the faint scent of his existence.
The one from my dreams.
A love transcending time and space, though severed by life, death, and the years. All for that singular moment of connection. A resonance of souls that finally leads to a reunion. Only days ago, while cleaning, the man stumbled upon a hidden switch. Startled for a moment, he presses it. A secret compartment clicks open, revealing no gold or jewels. Only a few unopened letters. As he stands there, bewildered, something magical occurs. At that same moment, a century earlier, a woman opens the same secret compartment, only to find her hidden letters have vanished. Who are you? Little did she dream that her secrets were being read by a man a century in the future. The letters reveal she was born of nobility, living a life of envy, yet her heart was filled with sorrow. Her father insisted she marry a 50-year-old earl despite her pledge. She was ultimately powerless to resist. In that era, a woman's marriage was never her own choice. Reading this, the man is filled with heartache. The helplessness between the lines sparks a bold idea to write down his thoughts to her on his computer. Sean tells his mother about the discovery, but she is not surprised. Instead, she encourages him to write back to this woman from the past. Time, she says, is merely another dimension, and will always believe that souls can transcend time and space. Sean dismissed it as mere legend, but the next morning, his mother handed him a stamp from the previous century, urging him to send it via the city's only century-old post office. Seeing his mother's persistence, Sean had no choice but to agree, and began writing a reply to Lizzie from a century ago.
Dear lady, I have just read the letter in the secret compartment of this desk. Perhaps you are out there in the mist right now, just a heartbeat away. Who knows? Perhaps I am not the one you seek, a friend. Everything was ready.
Sean went to the century-old post office and, half-doubting, dropped the letter into the slot. Then, something magical happened once more. Lizzie, a century in the past, actually received this letter from across time. She was instantly shocked by the contents of the letter. Filled with doubt, she opened the secret compartment of the desk, only to find that her own letter had vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, as Sean was watching a game, a strange noise suddenly came from the drawer. Bewildered, he walked to the desk and opened the secret compartment. He was stunned by what he saw. The previously empty compartment now held another letter. Without a second thought, he quickly opened it. The ink on the paper was Lizzie's immediate response.
Sir, I received your astonishing letter today, and I am amazed by your audacity. Who are you? And how could you know there was something in my secret place to be stolen? I wonder, as I place the second letter found in the same place as the first.
Am I in the toils of some feverish dream, or are you violating my privacy again? After reading the reply, Sean found it utterly inconceivable that he was truly receiving letters from a century ago. He examined the secret compartment, repeatedly finding no logical explanation, and could only take up his pen to write to Elizabeth once more.
Dear Elizabeth, I am certain you will find this as impossible to believe as I do. My name is Scott Corrigan. I live in Boston, but not the Boston that you know. I keep trying to imagine how any of this could be possible. The only explanation I can conceive is that for some reason, the connection between us is so profound that we are able to reach one another across the chasm of time. If I haven't already.
Terrified, you please sit at our desk and write to me again. Absurd as it seemed, after exchanging these first letters, Elizabeth's spirits were remarkably lifted. From then on, they began a dialogue that transcended time, sharing the intimate details of their lives. As time flowed by, their bond grew deeper and more intense. But this time days passed without a word from Sean, leaving Elizabeth's heart heavy with disappointment. She did not know his silence was because he was searching for her former home. Soon Sean traced the address from the letters to Elizabeth's residence, only to be met at the door by a housekeeper. After much persuasion, she finally allowed him to step into the grand hall. His eyes swept across every corner with desperate longing. He longed to find even a trace of Lizzie in the real world. Suddenly, an elderly woman's voice drifted down from upstairs. After a brief conversation, he learned she was the granddaughter of Lizzie's sister. Sean urgently asked whether Lizzie had ever married. The old lady looked weary, however, and asked her nurse to show him out. With no other choice, Sean had to leave with a heavy heart. But just as he was about to head down, something miraculous happened again. A century ago, Lizzie was just then walking up the stairs. Standing on the very same step, a mystical connection stirred in both their hearts.
The familiar face from my dreams. You are the warmth I've waited for. But this beautiful moment was suddenly broken by the nurse.
Back home, Sean immediately wrote a letter to tell Lizzie about the day's experience. After a long silence, Lizzie finally received his reply. He wrote that he had visited the house and met her sister's granddaughter. Even more miraculously, he had felt her presence right there on the stairs.
It's crazy. I felt as if I could touch you. Too Lizzie to ignore what's happened would be to deny a miracle. Forgive my silence. It won't happen again. I promise all my love. Scotty, after reading his words of love.
Lizzie immediately took up her pen to reply.
In the very same place on the stairs. A touch like a sweet promise, I know that we are tempting fate and they all. In reality, there's your time and my time, but we shall live and love across time.
One day, she dressed in her finest and asked a photographer to take her portrait. It turned out they had already agreed in their letters to exchange photographs. She wanted to present her best self to the man across time, but unexpectedly Sean met with an accident during a match. Though not life-threatening, the doctors couldn't say when he would regain consciousness. With no reply in sight, Isa grew increasingly anxious. Perhaps it was destiny that day. Isa crossed paths with the general, and the moment their eyes met, both felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. From then on, the general came to see Isa every day, spending every moment together. Their feelings for each other deepened. Isa could always sense a trace of Sean within the general. She continued to write daily, sharing every detail of her life with Sean. Blissful moments are fleeting. The general suddenly received orders to depart for the battlefield. On the eve of his departure, the general asked Isa to meet him in the park. After a soulful gaze, they shared a passionate kiss. The very moment their lips met, 100 years in the future, Sean suddenly awoke from his coma. He couldn't wait to retrieve the letters that had piled up, which were filled with every detail of Isa's time with the general. Far from being angry, Sean felt truly happy for Isa from the bottom of his heart. But upon learning the general was headed for the front lines, Sean's expression turned to one of shock. Knowing all too well the brutality of the American Civil War, he rushed to his computer to search the casualty lists of that battle. The general's name was prominently listed among the fallen. Realizing there was still time, Sean frantically wrote a letter to Isa. He had to warn her to stop the general from returning to his regiment. But on his way to the post office, he found the streets lined with fire engines. Arriving at the scene, he found the century-old post office engulfed in flames. He tried to dash inside to mail the letter, but was held back by police. No one was allowed near. In a desperate race against time, Sean disregarded his own safety and slipped into the house through a side door. Fortunately, the secret compartment was intact, and he immediately posted the letter. Isa was struck with terror upon reading the letter and immediately raced her carriage toward the station. But she was a moment too late. The general had already boarded the train to the front. Sean knew the events of a century ago. History remained beyond his power to change. The general was eventually gunned down by the time Isa reached the camp. He had only one breath left upon seeing Isa. He closed his eyes forever in her arms as Isa wept inconsolably over the general. Sean, a century later, suddenly jolted awake from a dream. The grief and despair felt so real, as if he had lived it all himself. Instantly overwhelming him, he opened the secret compartment and took out Isa's latest letter. Looking at the photograph inside, Sean finally realized he was the reincarnation of that general from a century ago. He wanted to reply immediately, but the post office was now in ruins, meaning they could never exchange letters again. Meanwhile, Isa's sister handed her a letter, which contained Sean's photograph. It turned out a servant had accidentally knocked Sean's letter under the table, which is why Isa had not seen it until then. Seeing that Sean's features were identical to the general's, a long-lost smile graced Isa's face. Perhaps all of this was predestined. The love between her and the general had finally come full circle, reuniting through reincarnation. Unable to send a letter, Sean returned to Isa's former home. By now, the granddaughter of Isa's sister had passed away, leaving only the nanny. Sean walked into the room where Isa once lived. Something seemed to be drawing him in. Stepping closer, he realized it was the vanity Lizzie once used. In that moment he could almost sense her presence. Sitting there gently, brushing her long hair. And a century ago, Lizzie felt Sean's presence just as clearly.
That familiar face from his dreams. A tender beauty. Yet so fleeting, the nanny broke the spiritual connection once more.
She handed Sean an old trunk, saying it was a legacy from the old woman filled with Lizzie's diaries and letters. Every word stood as a testament to a love that transcended time and space. When Sean's own photo appeared in the trunk, the nanny was struck speechless. "How did you get in there? I'll try to explain it. You're never going to believe it." Later, Sean visited Lizzie's grave, where the headstone was inscribed with their eternal vows of love. His pent-up emotions finally overflowed, and Sean broke down in tears, realizing that Lizzie's love for him was etched into her very soul. Suddenly, a golden retriever bounded toward him, and when he saw the dog's owner, Sean froze in his tracks. A myth of fate, something wrong. He thought this cross-temporal romance had reached its end, but fate had brought them together again in the most unexpected way. Sean then asked the girl out for coffee, and their love story was only just beginning to unfold once more. The film holds a Duban score of 8.3, hailed by audiences as an overlooked masterpiece of time travel romance. Its success lies in eschewing the typical tropes of the fantasy genre, focusing instead on the delicate, soulful flow of emotion. Sharing a spiritual lineage with classics like Somewhere in Time, it has become one of the definitive films exploring love across time and space. The film's profound portrayal of soul resonance and its celebration of free love allow it to continue evoking deep emotional resonance across generations.